This episode is brought to you by Joe Schmo, the brand built for the everyday American, the ones who work hard, take care of their people, and show up for their community. Joe Schmo isn't about being flashy, it's about being real. Gear up, represent your roots, and wear it proud.
Hi, everybody. So, little bit different setup for this People's Couch. We are actually in studio. We're super fancy. But I am super excited to have Talon Buck. He is a sophomore at Union High School here in our community, and he is a proclaimed historian by his mother and myself. I actually asked Talon to come on, and we're coming up on America 250. It's the 250th birthday of America. There's so much history. I was in Washington D.C. this past week, and just looking at all the things that came before us. And so I was inspired by something that your mom put on Facebook that you were talking to her about. So I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So I know, you're really into history, and I'm just curious, like, what got you hooked on history?
Well, I was on the bus one day and I was just looking on YouTube and I saw some this game and it was all about World War II, so I decided to click on it and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I just kept going deeper into history and yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Do you remember the name of the game?
Yeah, it's called Hearts of Iron 4. It's all about World War II. It's awesome.
Hearts of Iron 4.
4. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Have you been to the World War II Museum in Washington?
No, I want to go though. It looks cool.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you tell your mama to get you over there.
Yeah.
Actually, our mutual friend Stephanie Mackenzie,
Oh yeah.
her grandpa has stuff in there that was in World War II.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
So
cool.
it's super cool. So America's turning 250 next week. Like, what does that, you're 15, right? What does that number feel like to you? Does it seem like it's old? Is it young for a country? What does that mean to you?
It's in between really. I mean, it's a huge milestone for American history and throughout world history we have been a big presence. And I just think it's like crazy how we've came so far in such short time.
Right, really, because 250 years seems like a lot for most people, but that's in people years,
Yeah.
right? Not in country years. So as a country, we're pretty young, actually.
Yeah.
We aged well, huh?
Yeah. Like all those European nations are all like they've been here since the medieval times, like England, like Hungary, Austria, all that.
Yeah. How old are they? Do you know? Roundabout?
Um, Austria's a few thousand, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And yes, yeah, they're all pretty old.
Well, yeah. So we're babies. I mean, we're
Yeah,
literally a baby.
we are very new compared to everything
Oh,
else.
I did not know that. But I mean, I knew we were younger, obviously, a
Yeah,
younger nation, but that's a big difference between 1,000 and 250 for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go way back, right? If you had to explain to someone why the colonists decided to break away from Britain, um, how would you put it into their words or your own words, I should say, because probably can't speak for them. But why do you think that they wanted to break away?
Well, I think we had like no representation in Britain's parliament system. Like we were unfairly taxed for a war that we were pretty much dragged into for just land they wanted from the French.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
So different things like that with the how the government was set up.
yeah, and it was
Yeah.
just all really unorganized here.
Okay, that's interesting. So we started with 13 and then we expanded to 50. So like what's the short version story of that, do you think?
Most of it we purchased like the Louisiana Territory, Alaska. We we declared war on Mexico to get all that, but we did end up paying them for all of those, and we also
Mhm.
bought a little bit more of. I'm pretty sure it's a part of Arizona now.
From Mexico?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mexico and then you had the Louisiana purchase
Mhm.
that acquired
Yeah.
most of that probably.
Yeah.
southern area there. Okay, all right. So, what do you think the single boldest thing about the Declaration of Independence was when it was written in 1776?
Um, in my opinion, I'm pretty sure it was just when it was just so rushed because like I think the boldest part was just sending it in general because like nobody was expecting that at the time, obviously, because nobody really thought because it was mainly just a revolt against the British just taxing us. So I think that just like signing it in general was crazy
Yeah,
and
and
just a
then it's
bold.
still applicable 250
Yeah,
years later.
yeah.
You think Britain was expecting that?
No, not at all. I thought they were. I'm pretty sure they would thought that we were just gonna settle down after a little while, just kill a few uprisers and all that.
Yeah. If we were a bunch of just rogue teenagers, we'd settle down and come to our senses.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. So we had the revolution, right? The American Revolution, and I don't know that a lot of people realize how close it came to failing. There's a lot of just ordinary people that played a role in it succeeding, not just the famous leaders that everybody knows about. So what how do you feel like those ordinary people played such an integral role in that?
I feel like there was a ton of aid, like from like people just joining like the militias or them just helping injured soldiers they would find on the field or feeding them, giving them
Mhm.
maybe a place to stay. I feel like that really helped during the revolution because
So yeah,
without
just
that,
ordinary people coming in.
yeah, ordinary people just coming in saying this is a good cause, this needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And and militias have been around for a really long time. And
Yeah,
do you think that they're seen as more of a negative or a positive in today's
well,
society?
they can be both. For like, if you're in a corrupt country, then militias would be perfect. But if like you're in a fine country, like let's say Spain, and
Hmm.
let's just say you rise up, probably it could be a bad thing. Like during the Spanish Civil War, there was three factions. There was the Democrats, there were the anarchists, and the fascists. Which the fascists end up winning, which I feel like that was a pretty bad thing to happen.
Hmm. Yeah. So it really depends on what their goal is,
Yeah.
right? What they're trying to overcome.
Mhm.
So after winning the Revolutionary War, right, the founders had to actually build a country from scratch. And what surprised you most about how messy and difficult that process was?
Probably finding the form of government they really wanted to take, because I know a lot. Not a lot of people know about this, but it was like George Washington. It was either going to be a monarchy or it was going to be a republic. They didn't know. They had no idea what to do because
Right.
well, we were just so new, and because Washington was seen as a war hero. Like he basically, in the public's view, won the war. So there was a ton of trust in Washington. So I feel
Why
like
do
that
you
would be
think
the
with the
messiest.
route that they did?
I think they did good with the route that they did take. I mean, obviously they had some like hiccups here and there, but they overcame it.
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, so to your point, I mean, George Washington had a chance to become the king. He said
Mhm.
no. Um, why do you think that he did that? And obviously, how important was that to how what America has become?
I think the most important part to that is whenever we did rise up, if we went back to being a monarchy, then the whole revolution would have been just a waste. Because we did it to be free, not be under another, monarch.
Right.
So I feel like that would be the most important part. And then how we grew into the nation we are, like it was so important because without us turning to like a democracy, the Cold War, World War I, World War II would have been a whole different situation. We probably would have been involved in World War I nor World War II.
How do you think that would have changed the trajectory of our country?
I feel like we would be like less technology like being in technology. Like I don't think AI would have been developed at all. I feel like it would have been like I feel like we would be in the 30s right about now, in like technologies wise and all that.
A lot less advanced
Yeah.
because we are under control of somebody else.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship wouldn't be where it was today or where it is
Yeah.
today, right? Without it. A lot more controlled for sure. Um, so out of the Constitution and all of that from 250 years ago, what do you think they got most right?
The First Amendment, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
the freedom of speech, it just makes us who we are today. It's why we're here now.
Yeah. And it's funny because we've got World Cup going on, right? And
Yeah.
we have all of these visitors from other countries and all of the things in the news about how in awe they are of what we have. And I mean, I personally have not, outside of Mexico, right? I've not visited out of the country. So I really don't know, and I can't speak to what we have and what they don't have. But I think there's a lot of people in America that don't realize the freedoms that they have
Yeah.
in comparison, right?
Yeah. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't imagine. So, what do you think when the founding fathers were sitting around the table? They're trying to figure out the Constitution, right? They're writing it out. They're arguing it, pros, cons, battling it, debating. What do you think some of the biggest arguments were?
Probably, I'm pretty sure slavery would have been up there because, well, we were still running on that slave system and we had promised slaves that were fighting that they would get freedom, but obviously we came up with the North and South system. I feel like that would be one of the biggest arguments. Then also with, pretty sure it was Thomas Jefferson, whenever he came into presidency, he didn't really like the freedoms of speech we had. Like he didn't like talking bad about presidents. So I'm sure that was also a major factor in the Constitution and writing all that.
In one of the arguments on the
Yeah.
freedom of speech. Yeah, absolutely. And no doubt they don't want people just spouting off, but at the end of the day, we elect them and we nominate them, and just because they're
Yeah.
sitting in that seat doesn't mean that we have to be hush hush, right?
Yeah.
So the Civil War, right? That comes in about 85 years into our story. So we're
Hmm.
85 years old, still pups. But how do you explain what was really at stake in that conflict? Because that's an
I
internal,
feel,
right?
yeah.
I mean, that's internal.
If if the at stakes was probably a ton of states, like Missouri probably would have been brought into the Confederates because we were on that slave system still. So
Hmm.
as West Virginia would have been put right back into Virginia because that was the only reason why they became their own state is to not be part of the Confederates. And also, I'm pretty sure if the Confederates would have somehow succeeded, it probably would have been a North and South Korea situation, like how we would be like South Korea and then the Confederates would have been more of a North Korea situation.
So if it would have went the other way, what do you think the country would look like today?
I feel like we would be a lot less poor, and the Cold War would have been a lot more difficult, or maybe even World War II being at our borders with, because the Confederates, they probably would have turned to more of a fascist side because, well, that whole slave thing. So we could have
Hmm.
maybe even lost if that could have happened, World War II or World War One.
I don't think we would be as free of a nation, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah, definitely.
I mean, if slavery was around, that's not a free nation,
Yeah, that
um,
would,
at all.
yeah.
So what? How did it actually end? How did the Civil War end? You want to explain that and what happened in the years right afterwards?
So how it really ended is more of when we used the Anaconda Plan. We really choked them out of like foreign aid resources. So honestly, it was a war about time, and which they ran out of time. And then we would use scorched earth methods where that would just be like burning down cities or blowing up stuff,
Oh boy.
making sure they could not like have any more supplies or like be able to get food to resupply. Feel
Mm-hmm.
like feel like that's what really took the final blows.
Kind of choked them off
Yeah.
of surviving. Yeah. So what happened, in those years right after?
Reconstruction, like, because what I just said, we just like ruined cities. So a lot of like rebuilding and we had just got rid of slavery, so we were definitely having to adapt the South to a new economy with what would be industrial economy because of that big switch.
Sure. Yeah. And making, I'm sure there was laws, the implementation of laws. We were talking about that in DC. Laws get passed, but then there's the implementation side, right? And making sure that, especially with big policy changes with like, slavery abolishment, of ensuring that people are following the rules
Yeah.
and truly freeing those slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on. Let's get into, we got World War One. So if you had to pick one moment in the 1900s that you think defined what America stood for on the world stage, right? What do you think that would be? What do you think it?
Our industry for sure, because we were going to the world like to be the best economy, and we were just came from more of a broke nation on a farming economy, and we had just switched to a very big industrial economy, which shaped how the world is today and how America is today.
And that was like within the
Yeah,
revolution, right?
yeah.
And then, America stayed out of World War One for as long as we really probably could, right? For years before finally joining, back in the early 1900s. What finally pushed us in?
Probably the Ziggerman telegraph and the U-boats attacks on our ships for sure. Because
The
well,
Zimmerman Telegraph. What is
yeah.
that?
So that was a proposal to Mexico during World War One. If they would have joined in on the Central Powers, they would have gained Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona if they would have joined the Central Powers and helped fight against, well, us.
So essentially, we had to join it to and defend ourselves from
Yeah,
infiltration from more south. What did American soldiers find when they got over to Europe?
it probably would have been more of like uh, a, a mess, really, because it was a whole new type of war, because we were still using more of old tactics like trench warfare we had no experience with. So having to like get in those trenches and getting trench foot and all those diseases were probably crazy to American soldiers, and also getting gassed,
Mhm.
probably a bad experience whatsoever.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. So, individuals that don't know, like the transition and the type of warfare to what you're talking about in World War One, we're used to um, two rows, right, facing each
Mhm.
other, running at each other, shooting and stabbing and fighting,
Yeah.
right? And then World War One comes around, we get over to Europe, and what's different than what's the trench that you're talking about?
So it would be kind of like how it used to be, but instead there'd be this big line and it would be a hole in the ground. And the two sides would be, instead of like being above, they would be inside those two lines.
The
So
trenches.
whenever one would try to advance forward, they would get mowed down by gunfire, machine gun, and it was way, way more deadlier.
Yeah, because they're essentially hiding in the trenches,
Yeah,
right?
they're
Under.
safe in their little area, and while
Mhm.
the enemy soldier is trying to push them forward.
Right. Because it's not a gentleman's war, right?
Yeah.
That's how it was in the very beginning as a gentleman's war. Everybody stood there and then they advanced, which is quite interesting. There's a lot more at stake, so we have to get a little bit more stealthier, and we
Yeah.
definitely have done that over the years, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So talking about that, I mean, World War One introduced like terrifying new weapons to the soldiers, right? Things that we've never seen. So what were some of those? Like you're talking about machine guns, like I think they had cannons way back in the day.
They didn't. Yeah, cannons were essentially just it replaced with like traditional artillery that would they just shoot, farther. But I feel like the biggest thing that was introduced was the airplane, because that was a whole new type of warfare.
Hmm.
Because nobody really expected warfare to be in the skies. it would sound like, you'd be cuckoo, but that
Yeah.
was, yeah,
So if
no,
we weren't involved in that war, we we wouldn't be as advanced as we are, right? Because we didn't know about all of this new technology that they were
yeah,
fighting with over there.
yeah, we wouldn't have been trying to develop new technologies if we weren't, in that war.
Interesting. Never even, I never thought about it that way. But 100%, we were over by ourselves, over in America. They're advancing in the warfare, which obviously is technology, not just for war. And we would have been so far behind
Hmm.
that we would have been sitting ducks at some point. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So December 7th, 1941 is one of the most famous dates in American history. So can you walk us through what happened and why it's so significant?
All right. So the story really starts before, Pearl Harbor. So we were angry with Japan because of, well, they were taking over Southern Asia or Asia in general. Like they took in French Indochina, which would be Vietnam, Cambodia. I forgot the last one, but basically we told them, like we warned them several times, stop, you're going too far. And well, we decided to just cut off oil trade with Japan for good because, well, we don't want them invading, but they realized that they needed oil. So it was either help the Germans with Operation Barbarossa, which that was invasion of the Soviet Union, to get oil that way, or they would attack us, which they decided to go with the second option,
Eventually.
which then they struck us when we weren't expecting, but luckily we had our aircraft carriers out on training, so at least we got to keep those. But our na our a big part of our navy was crippled after that, so it was a long war ahead.
Wow. I mean, obviously we were victorious in the end, but that was painful.
Hmm.
Very, very painful for sure. And which is why a lot of measures have to be taken. Again, I don't you have to understand where we came from, where America's history was, regardless of political aspects, and understand that steps have to be taken forward, right, to protect
Hmm.
us. So things like that, 9/11, don't, are few and far between, if at all.
Yeah.
Um, so America had to fight on two completely different fronts at the same time in World War II, right? We had Europe and we had Pacific. How did the country manage to pull all of that off? And well, let's talk about that first. What do you think we did to pull that off?
Ah, so we really, whenever we first were introduced, we had to deal with the bigger threat, which would have been Germany at the time. So we had to meet up with Churchill and discuss about how we were gonna attack Germany and its expansion. So we attacked. We did D-Day. We landed in Lower Italy, and we also landed in Lower France. And we it was a slow journey, but we liberated the majority of France. Then we were also in Asia. We were still doing stuff in Asia to obviously fend off the Japanese, but not as much as we were doing in Germany when we had first entered the war. So we met. So then we met up with the Soviets after they had, taken Eastern Germany, and then we went full in with Japan. Obviously, we would Midway, Iwo Jima, and then eventually came to either doing a full-on naval invasion of Japan itself, which would have cost hundreds of thousands, possible millions of lives, or we would either have had to nuke Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which we obviously did, the second option.
Yeah, yeah. So, what did it take from everyday Americans back home in that aspect?
Well, a lot of Americans were drafted or signed up for, the army, and our industry had switched from civilian to a wartime industry. So we got less luxuries, but it was for, well, the greater good, obviously.
No, and I think it was a pivotal point for women in the workforce
Oh
too,
yeah.
right?
Ex- yeah, there's a ton of propaganda like the "We Can Do It" poster originated from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a crazy thing because back then nobody really expected women to be in the workforce, but obviously that's 100% changed now.
Right. Yeah. That the course of history definitely changes all of that. And then,
Yeah,
I'd be remiss, and we didn't kind of tee this up, but we've got the Korean War and we have the Vietnam War. Those were
yeah.
very integral wars as well. How do you feel like those played into some of these other more bigger, longer wars, right? But I mean,
I feel the Korean War that was more of a draw, but mainly we won in the Korean War because we secured what our goal was to maintain communism. But in Vietnam, I feel like we could have handled it a lot better. Especially, we should have just stopped at the parallel we put them at. But it just happened. It was an embarrassing defeat, but it's just history now.
so what was the history of the Vietnam War? Let's talk about that.
North Vietnam had declared war on Southern Vietnam because they wanted to reunite their home country and all that. So they invaded, and we decided to intervene, which not a lot of our European allies really didn't help. They were too busy trying to maintain either their colonial empires they still had left, or they were trying to, recover from World War II. So it was really us in it alone with, Southern Vietnam, which we held ground for a while. We had pushed them pretty far back, but we were just getting they were using guerrilla type warfare, which would be like setting traps like it was like you were in like an Amazon type movie. They were setting traps, booby traps, they were like having spike traps and where you would step. And then the American public obviously were seeing what was going on. They were like, no, we don't want people fighting in that. We don't want the innocent lives, just die. So we ended up pulling out of that war.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like that was their own civil war that was their business, maybe. I don't know. We weren't there at that time, but I mean, it was a tough one.
Yeah.
That the veterans of that age, just the disrespect that they received and just what
Oh
they
yeah.
dealt with in there. I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
They
it was
should have been treating veterans when they got home like that. That was a little too far.
terrible, terrible, terrible. And then what about the Korean War? You want to give us
The
a little
Korean War. That
back?
one was that one was whenever I'm pretty sure it was Kim Il Sung had decided to think he's stronger than, I'm at Southern Korea. So he invaded and that he almost got victory. But luckily we got the UN's permission and we got troops on Korea, and then we did an amphibious naval invasion in I forgot the region, but it was like on the eastern Korea peninsula. So we pushed them all the way back up to the Chinese border they'd had. But the Chinese, because they had just won their own civil war and the communists just won. So they sent tons of troops to, push us back, which we signed a ceasefire instead of a regular peace agreement. So technically the war's still going, but
Because there was never
yeah,
still
there's never,
didn't have that document signed.
yeah, it's just still going. It's just, they're just not attacking anymore, but
Wow. Interesting. Interesting.
yeah.
Oh, well, every generation, has had its own big challenges to face. For your generation, what do you think that challenge is, or what do you foresee the challenge being?
Probably the housing market right now, because, houses have been going up in price for very, very long time. And I feel like if it keeps going that way, then it's going to be very difficult for young Americans like me to buy a house.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, when I was in DC yesterday, I got to watch Monday night, I get to watch the Senate pass
Mhm.
the 21st um, Century Road to Housing Act. And then last night on Tuesday, the House passed it. Now it's in the president's hand, so that, there's some debate going on him signing it or not, but they do say that within 10 days it will be. So hopefully, I mean, it's a very hot topic, just, for you
Yeah.
guys, because that is concerned. That is the ultimate American dream, right? Is to
Mhm.
own your own home, build that equity, build that wealth. So we got your backs there, Talon. We got your backs. What would you say over the last 250 years, some of the biggest inventions or moments that, that we really haven't, we've talked about some of them, right? But
Mm.
that have really changed our country.
Henry Ford, he invented the forgot it was a conveyor belt, and I feel like that completely changed industry how it is today because it was this long process of just handing it off. But with the conveyor belt, it would just push out the part. Somebody would like attach something, and then it would just go on to the second person, and it saved a ton of time, and
Yeah.
it made things a lot more easier to produce.
Yeah. And I would say that technology, right?
Mm.
Has been applied in so much more than just industrial, right? I mean,
Yeah,
vehicles with the belts, with the fans. I mean, it's applicable to a lot of different technologies across
yeah.
the history. What do you think? What's an invention that we haven't seen that you think we will?
Hmm. That's a really good one. I think like more of like flying cars. I feel like that's more logical because there's some I think that's actually a thing now.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but and probably more like AI, like real robots, like more being in the house, completely controlled by AI. I feel like because we're just getting more advanced with it every day. I feel like AI would be.
I mean, it's literally the Jeffersons coming to life, right?
Yeah.
And if we have cars that are driving themselves, we have airplanes already. I mean, there's restaurants where there are robots that are delivering food. I would agree. It's cool. I can't imagine that 200 years ago, let's just say, right? They would think that we would even like be talking like this.
Yeah.
Um,
We
you
still
know,
had more of a British accent, but and well, we weren't even they would be mind blown if they saw what we have today.
right. So, I mean, I don't even, I think the sky, I mean, I don't think, I know, right? The sky's the
Yeah.
limit. We don't know what we don't know and what could be. So, all right. Last question. If you could go back and have dinner with any American history figure, who would it be and what would you ask them?
I'm forgetting his name, but he got stuck in the bathtub in the White House. And
How did
I
he get
just,
stuck in the bathtub?
yeah, exactly. How do you get stuck in the bathtub in the White House as the president of the United States?
Okay. You want to ask him.
Yeah,
The
I don't
man.
know how.
That I did not think that would be your final answer, sir.
Yeah, it's crazy. How do you get stuck in a bathtub?
Wondering minds want to know, how do you get stuck in a bathtub?
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you, I could sit and talk to you all day. I have a feeling. There's a couple of veteran small groups that meet for coffee. I'm going to tell your mom about them. I think you should go sit and just hang out with them. They would love to have a young man like yourself sitting there and chatting. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for being a part of, just a little bit of history about our company on its 250th birthday.
Yeah.
And, you'll be there for the 300th, hopefully, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh.
what an experience it'll be. So thank you so much, sir. And I'll talk to you later. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. See you guys.
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Joe Schmo, for the everyday American who shows up, works hard, and takes pride in where they come from. Joe Schmo, simple, solid, real.